But this 10-mile climb to the finish was the moment Greg LeMond had waited for. The chance of revenge over his teammate Bernard Hinault, the chance to get his own back on what he did a day ago. And LeMond takes off in pursuit of Andy Hampsten. He catches him, he leaves him. And LeMond now is motivated by revenge.
Welcome back to the Cycling Iceberg Podcast, everyone. A special stage awaits the riders today as Super Bagnières returns in the Tour de France for the first time since 1989. That's of course perhaps the most famous edition of the Tour, the closest one ever. The duel between Greg LeMond and Laurent Fignon in the streets of Paris, but earlier in that race, Super Bagnières featured as well. However, that's not the story I'll be telling, because today's stage is a near carbon copy of the stage of the 1986 Tour de France. That tour saw a heated internal rivalry, the peak of the rivalry between Greg LeMond and Bernard Hinault. We need to go back to 1984. That year, the media wrote that the era of Bernard Hinault was over. The once so dominant Badger had won the Tour 4 times, but struggled with a lingering knee injury that forced him to skip the 1983 Tour. Despite Hinault's absence, it was Renault, his team, which still won the Tour de France. They did so with the very young Laurent Fignon, who only came in to replace Hinault. The team therefore faced a crucial decision. Should they stick with the experienced Hinault or back their two rising talents? Because Fignon wasn't the only 22-year-old who performed well on Renault, they also had Greg LeMond. During this power struggle, the relationship between Renault's manager, Cyril Guimard, and Hinault deteriorated. The once so successful pairing parted ways after 6 seasons. Hinault left Renault to join forces with businessman Bernard Tapie. Tapie was very rich. He has his own mini-series on Netflix, which I will link in the show notes. It's worth watching if you want to get an idea of just how showman Tapie was. He had a private jet, he owned multiple companies, he was active in football, and now also in cycling. He wanted quick success, but the venture wasn't successful right from the get-go. In the 1984 Tour, Hinault was completely outclassed by Fignon. The younger Frenchman won by over 10 minutes, while Hinault only narrowly beat LeMond. After this defeat, the papers wrote the Hinault era was over. The European papers mainly focused on Fignon. A young Frenchman was taking over the throne from his longtime idol. Meanwhile, there was also some attention for LeMond, although that was mainly in the Anglophone media. They saw the potential of the young American and were also drawn by the fact that he could potentially break open the US market for cycling. Hinault, for his part, was not ready to give up that easily. He wanted to put up a final fight. He'd always said he wanted to retire in 1986, so that left him with 2 years to win the Tour twice and still become the lone record holder. He was backed by his team owner. Tapie went all out for the 1985 season. The flamboyant team owner opened the checkbook and signed Greg LeMond. He offered the American a deal worth $1 million over 3 seasons. While LeMond wasn't technically a millionaire, Tapie had a great sense of marketing. He positioned him as the first deal maker, the kingmaker, LeMond becoming the first cycling millionaire. In fact, despite having performed far less than Hinault and having a much smaller legacy, he was earning more than the French leader of the team. Later, Tapie would say that Hinault was an easy negotiator, especially compared to the dad of LeMond, who negotiated his contract. There were a number of first-class tickets thrown in there as well, so his family could fly over from the US to see him race the Tour de France. That wasn't all. Steve Bauer, Kim Andersen, and Bernard Vallet were also brought in. Critics immediately speculated that Tapie signed LeMond to neutralize Hinault's biggest threat for the future. After winning the Giro, Hinault entered the 1985 Tour as the clear favourite, mainly because Fignon was sidelined. He had an injury to his Achilles tendon. Other contenders included Panasonic's Phil Anderson, Seat's Pedro Delgado, and Sean Kelly, who raced for SEM. The Tour began in Hinault's home region, Brittany. He won the prologue, and LeMond finished 5th despite having chain issues. The two then combined forces to win the team time trial on day 4, gaining a full minute on their rivals. In the 6th stage, LeMond moved 2 seconds ahead of his GC leader by sprinting to 2nd place. That wasn't long lasted, however, because in stage 8, Hinault took the win. He won the 75km time trial by 2 minutes and 20 seconds over second place finisher Steven Roche of La Redoute. LeMond came in 4th at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. This put Hinault's GC lead at 2.5 minutes over LeMond. Roche and Anderson were already 4 minutes down. Hinault strengthened his grip on the Tour de France in stage 11. He attacked along Café Colombia's Luis Herrera on the first of 3 climbs. The two worked together for 70 kilometers. Hinault made a deal. Herrera was allowed to take KOM points and the stage win, while Hinault gained valuable time on his rivals. He put his GC lead at 4 minutes over LeMond. The next day, everything was pretty much locked up. In the climbing time trial, Hinault finished 2nd. He gained 15 seconds on Roche and 1:20 on LeMond. With such a large lead, La Vie Claire's focus shifted to securing 2nd place for LeMond. That became their main goal after the rest day. In stage 14, to Saint-Étienne, LeMond joined a 7-man breakaway, while Hinault remained in the peloton, marking any possible reaction by Roche. LeMond finished 3rd on the stage, gaining 2 minutes. Things looked great for La Vie Claire, but as Hinault approached the finish, it was Bauer, the teammate of Hinault, who hit a piece of road furniture and crashed badly. Hinault had no chance to avoid his teammate and went down as well. Fortunately, the crash occurred in the final kilometer, meaning Hinault didn't lose any time, but he was severely injured. He crossed the line covered in blood, suffering from a head wound, a broken nose, and blackened eyes. To make matters worse, the congestion from his broken nose led to bronchitis. In the yellow jersey, giving up was not an option for Hinault. He pressed on, despite all the pain. He needed to survive the Pyrenees, starting with stage 17 to Les Ardiden. On the penultimate climb, the Tourmalet, Hinault was already suffering. Hinault set a super high pace, seemingly out of spite against their former leader. They had no real contender for the stage win or rider high up in the GC, but still, they blew up the race. They pushed Hinault to his limit. The French leader of the race yelled at other riders, ordering them to slow down. But that just prompted Delgado to attack. Roche and LeMond followed the Spaniard. Severely banged up, Hinault had no answer to that attack. He even got dropped by the second group of chasers. He managed to catch up with them in the downhill, but was quickly dropped again on Les Ardiden. For La Vie Claire, it was critical that Hinault won a 5th Tour. They wanted to make history and equal the record of Merckx and Anquetil. Commercial factors also played a role, as French winner on a French team would yield La Vie Claire more publicity in France, their main market. In order to help Hinault, the team lied to LeMond, who was up front with Roche. The American was told he wasn't allowed to work with the Irishman because Hinault was just 45 seconds behind. LeMond bickered with the team car, but eventually obeyed team orders. He fixated on Roche's wheel, waiting for Hinault to catch up. Only when Roche and LeMond were caught by the second group, the American discovered he'd been lied to. Hinault was nowhere near the second group. He was suffering much further down the mountain. LeMond eventually finished 5th on the stage, gaining a minute on Hinault. He was absolutely furious. He was in all states after the line, telling reporters he felt betrayed by his team. Hinault, for his part, was frustrated people questioned his authority. He dismissed any concerns, stating it was simply a matter of regular protocol. A teammate shouldn't attack the race leader. Earlier in the race, Hinault had already punched a reporter, complaining there were too many of them at the finish. They didn't press him that hard after that. While there was no GPS data to verify the exact gaps, LeMond believes he was 3 to 4 minutes clear of Hinault. More realistically, the newspapers at the time estimated the gap to be around 2 minutes, still a significant gap. It is also certain he would have gained much more time had he been allowed to push on. Instead, he only gained 1 minute 15. This left him 2:30 down in GC. His trust in the team had been shattered to the point he was ready to leave the tour. He was convinced to continue in an emergency meeting, only after Hinault promised to support him the following year. The next morning, stage 18A took the riders to the Col d'Aubisque in a super short 50km blitz stage. Roche attacked on the final climb and flew away. He won the stage, while Hinault struggled again. LeMond had accepted his role as worker by now and pushed on for his team leader. He later said that Hinault was suffering so hard he had to physically push him up the steepest part of the climb. On the final section, LeMond wanted to make a statement. He dropped Hinault, who lost 1:30 to Roach. Crucially though, he only lost 15 seconds to LeMond. Hinault had staggered, but won his 5th Tour, with LeMond and Roach completing the podium. The American and the Frenchman remained teammates in 1986, but that 1985 Tour had seriously impacted their relationship. In 1986, LeMond was the top favorite to win the Tour. Hinault was the second favorite, and outside France, most people expected him to support the American, honoring his word from the year before. He had also gone on record stating that he would support LeMond. Competition was expected to come from two-time Tour de France winner Laurent Fignon, who had now returned from an Achilles tendon injury, racing for Système U. Other outsiders were Luis Herrera from Café de Colombia, Pedro Delgado from PDM, and Charlie Motet, also from Système U. The first gaps were created in the team time trial held on the afternoon of day 2. Système U took the win, with La Vie Claire placing just in 5th. They lost 2 minutes because they waited for 2 injured teammates who had crashed in the morning. They didn't want them to finish outside of the time limit. Herrera was immediately out of GC contention, as Café Colombia ended last. The next test for the GC riders was another race against the clock, coming in stage 9. This time it was an individual test. Hinault completed the 60km course 45 seconds faster than LeMond, who had a puncture. Fignon lost 3 minutes 40 and Delgado 5 minutes. It was clearly a good day for La Vie Claire. They recovered more time than they had lost in the team time trial. 5 Pyrenean cols awaited the riders in stage 12. La Vie Claire was very active at the beginning of the stage. They followed multiple moves but missed out on the decisive break. As a reaction, Hinault decided to set a super high pace on the Col de Burunchetta. He dropped Fignon, who would lose 11 minutes. Clearly, the professor wasn't at his best yet. Although Hinault had publicly pledged his support for LeMond, he had different plans. With 90 kilometers of racing to go, he attacked with teammate Jean-François Bernard. They were followed by Delgado, swiftly catching up to the break and leaving them behind immediately. LeMond was once again stuck in the team game. He couldn't attack behind his 2 teammates, and he needed to painfully see Hinault's lead expand minute by minute, second by second. On the final climb, the Marie Blanc, Delgado and Hinault reached a 5-minute lead. And although it was against cycling protocol to attack when your teammate is ahead, LeMond had had enough. He was promised leadership, so he launched an attack to reduce his losses. At the finish, Hinault allowed Delgado to win the stage, but he was very pleased to have gained over 4.5 minutes on LeMond. Down 5.5 minutes at this point, LeMond was not amused. He felt betrayed as Hinault hadn't held his word. The American was overheard telling his dad, "God damn it, Dad, I'm gonna lose this tour once again. I'm gonna finish second, just like last year." He wasn't the only one seeing the scenario of the year before unfold. The Dutch and Belgian papers also wrote about a repeat scenario. Hinault being very slinks, locking down LeMond in the team game, using his experience and taking advantage of the inexperience and potential naiveness of the younger American. Stage 13 traversed the Tourmalet, Aspin and Périssoud before finishing up at Super-Bagnères. This marked a turning point in the race. Hinault again went on the attack and took off on the descent of the Tourmalet, 90 kilometers remaining. LeMond again couldn't chase his teammate, especially because he was in the yellow jersey. Hinault gained 45 seconds, and by the top of the Aspin, he had a lead of 2 minutes. The tables, however, turned later in the stage. Hinault, perhaps overconfident from his success in the Tour so far, had overestimated himself. His lead evaporated on the Périssoud. He reached the top just 20 seconds ahead of a small chasing group, which included LeMond. He was subsequently caught in the descent. To say Hinault cracked on Super-Bagnères would be an understatement. He completely bonked due to his earlier efforts. He suffered extremely hard while LeMond seized the moment. Aided by his teammate Andrew Hampsten, LeMond won the stage, gaining 4 minutes and 39 seconds on Hinault. He had reduced the GC gap to just 40 seconds. The tensions within the team were extremely high. La Vie Claire was divided. 4 French riders supported Hinault. The 2 Swiss, how else could it be possible? They were neutral. The other 2 riders were on LeMond's side. Hinault was clearly racing for his own success, which led to a heated argument with LeMond. Team owner Bernard Tapie had to intervene himself to restore the order. However, whatever pact was formed was always short-lived within La Vie Claire because they clashed again. Stage 16 was marked by strong crosswinds. Hinault made the front group with 2 teammates, while LeMond was less attentive and was caught behind. The yellow jersey seemed poised to gain at least a minute, but then Panasonic came to LeMond's rescue. They helped to bring the groups back together. And despite avoiding a time loss, LeMond was visibly furious again after the stage. It was later revealed he even threatened to leave the race, but he was convinced to continue by Tapie again. Tapie needed to act like a politician, bringing 2 sides together, but it was extremely difficult. Hinault repeatedly taunted LeMond, making remarks such as, "Are LeMond's legs hurting? Not just at the team car, but also at the team dinners." Nevertheless, the American only grew stronger. This became evident in stage 17, to the Col de Granon. Hinault got dropped by LeMond on the penultimate climb, the Izoard. The lingering knee issue Hinault had been dealing with since 1980 returned here. He had severe pain in his left knee and finished 13th on the stage, far below his normal level. Meanwhile, LeMond was finally set free. The American followed an attack by Urs Zimmermann of Carrera, who was 3rd in GC. The 2 worked together on the descent and also on the climb of the Granon. They pulled away from the rest, gaining a minute on Delgado. Hinault lost 3 minutes and 20 seconds. It was his 75th day in yellow, but it was also his last. Truly the end of an era. LeMond now led the GC, 2 minutes and 25 seconds ahead of Zimmermann. Hinault was agonized by his 3rd place in GC, but especially by the fact that he needed to relinquish leadership to LeMond. The Frenchman called a team meeting, which lasted until 4 o'clock the following morning. He complained that LeMond dragged Zimmermann to 2nd in GC. He wanted to attack Zimmermann until he was broken. LeMond opposed this. He said the time trial should easily be enough for Hinault to secure 2nd place. By now it should be clear that Hinault didn't listen to anything LeMond said, so he did what he intended and launched numerous attacks in the 160km stage to Alpe d'Huez the following day. On the Telegraph, he finally broke away. LeMond was told he was free to race as long as he didn't drag Zimmermann with him. He counterattacked with Bauer and Pello Ruiz from Seat. Those 3 caught up to Hinault. Bauer proved himself to be an extremely valuable teammate. He paced until the foot of the Croix de Fer. On that climb, LeMond and Hinault got away. They looked to leave all their disputes behind them. Hinault asked LeMond to slow because his knee was hurting again. But by the top, their lead on Zimmermann was 3 minutes. LeMond led the leading duo of Alpe d'Huez, keeping Hinault in his wheel. Close to the finish, LeMond came alongside Hinault and put his arm around his former leader. Hinault took LeMond's hand at the finish to cross the line together. The Frenchman took the stage win and gained 5 minutes on Zimmermann. It appeared an armistice had been reached between LeMond and Hinault, finally leaving their disputes behind. But anyone dreaming of improved relations was awoken hours later when LeMond and Hinault appeared on French TV. Hinault stated that the tour would only be over after the final time trial. He doubled down on his comments on the rest day, but promised he wouldn't attack if LeMond still led the GC after the time trial. This compromise came only after LeMond once again threatened to leave the race if Hinault continued to attack him. He wanted to be shown respect. Telling for the situation was perhaps how the scenario unfolded in stage 19. Hinault resorted to attacking in the feed zone, a move he had previously called low and desperate. He got reeled in by his own teammates Bauer and Hampsten. Speculation grew that other riders might try to force LeMond out of the race by crashing him out. According to LeMond, Hinault rejected an offer by a rider to cause a crash for him. Tour director Jacques Godet visited LeMond the night before the final time trial, warning him that others might want to see him lose. LeMond grew increasingly paranoid and took precautions. He had his parents buy him food. He even left waxed fingerprints on his anti-doping samples, making sure nobody tampered with them. The final time trial posed no significant issues for LeMond. After 20 out of 60 kilometers, he was 8 seconds up. However, the American crashed and had to change bikes. This allowed Hinault to take his 28th stage win, his final one. He gained 44 seconds and acted as a role model teammate in the remaining stages. He worked hard for LeMond on the Puy de Dôme. He made a big point out of it to bring him back after the peloton himself, after a crash early in the final stage toward Paris. LeMond became the first rider from an English-speaking country to win the Tour. Hinault always disagreed with the notion that he didn't want to work for LeMond. From his biography, "It wasn't my fault that he didn't understand how I lead a race. I spent all my time wearing out his opponents." Hinault also claimed he had toughened LeMond for the future in this way, although few people actually believe it. This tour was Hinault's final tour. He had always vowed to retire on his 32nd birthday, which he did. He is regarded as the second best rider ever, after Eddy Merckx. Regarding the attitude of Hinault, it's quite certain that he just wanted to try and win the race himself. He didn't want to appear as disloyal or untrustworthy, so that's why he made up the storyline that he was working for LeMond. Sure, to an extent he did shield LeMond from attacks and centered the attention around him, but without a doubt, had his knee pain not resurfaced, he would have certainly made a play for that tour. Hinault really wanted that 6th tour win, although he publicly never really spoke out that it was a big goal of him. Then about the 1985 Tour de France. There, LeMond was perhaps the strongest rider in the final week, who would have deserved to win, but there I can still see a bit more the point of La Vie Claire to favour Hinault. Like said, it's kind of similar to the story of last week when we discussed the 1977 Tour de France, the duel between Kuiper and Rally. But what I think is a more important dynamic there in 1985 is that Hinault had a firm grip on the Tour, he was leading, and he only lost his grip because of a bad crash. Seeing the fact he had a very large lead over his rivals, I can see the point why they wanted him to win the Tour. There was some sense of fairness in that. They also didn't take extreme risks, because in the end LeMond still finished second. Had Hinault needed to abandon, or had he lost more time, then they could have always switched to LeMond. As said, I think to an extent it was fair that they backed Hinault there. After all, the team was founded around him, he was the leader, and he had been the strongest rider. A similar stage design as to in the 1986 Tour de France await the riders today. The Tourmalet, Aspin, Périssoud, and then the finish up at Superbannière. Probably no big internal rivalries this time around, but hopefully a very exciting stage.